It's wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
It's like super duper wonderful.
Yes, it is. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Homewrecker podcast. I am the Golden Greek Alex Arion, joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous, amazing trophy wife, Monique.
Hello.
How's it going?
Just so spectacular. We've
Spectacular.
had such a great day today.
Yeah, it's been a pretty great day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really has been. Why has it been so great for you?
Well, when people listen to this, the day we're recording this episode, we've actually done 2 episodes.
Oh, you're
I'm ruining the magic.
man. Tell everybody how the sausage is made. Come on.
It's okay. But we just got to have so many awesome conversations today.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great day for talk.
Yes.
Or yeah.
Yes, and for our watchers, why I'm wearing the same thing 2 weeks in a row.
See, that's why I changed shirts.
Oh, I didn't.
But I guess I shouldn't have even bothered since you just gave it all away anyhow. Gosh. See, even
People probably wouldn't even notice.
They probably not. Probably not. You just called attention to it.
I don't care.
What are you gonna do?
I'm being honest.
See, even we present ourselves in a false way for the purposes of entertainment, if you will.
So
I guess
because we don't want people judging us for wearing the same thing
Yeah,
2
right.
weeks in a row.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So yeah, we've had a great day of conversation.
Yeah.
One of the things I don't know if I've talked about it before in the past, but one of my favorite things is listening to talk radio, to talk to people talking. That's why I love podcasting now, and that's why I fell in love with podcasts when they first came out, just because I love listening to people talk, give their stories and different perspectives on things, all different kinds of subjects. And I feel like the conversations we've had, especially the last few months, just been awesome.
Yes.
Just meeting some awesome people who are not afraid to say what's really on their minds.
Yeah.
And that bring a fresh perspective to everything.
Yeah, and they're just wonderful human beings. So that's just the cherry on top.
Absolutely. So today, this episode, we're going to be talking to Murph.
Yes.
Who is another gentleman who we found on Twitter. And he's actually a part of the Real Eyes Radio.
Yes, Real Eyes Radio. You can find them on Apple, iTunes, YouTube. I think anywhere you can get a podcast, you can find them. So subscribe and like.
Yes, and he's part of Real Eyes Radio with Human Vibration and Rambo. And why waste any more time? I say we just get right to the interview. So everybody, get ready. Here we go with Murph. We are back, and we are joined by making his video debut.
Yes.
Not his audio, but his video debut.
Yes.
Murph. Murph, how you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you guys?
Doing fantastic, man. Very, very good to have you here.
Yes,
we're excited.
I got to say, you look awesome. You look great. Spectacular.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks for inviting me.
So I found you on Twitter probably around the same time I think that I discovered Rambo and Human Vibration. And just some really unique stuff. Your Twitter timeline, it's a mix of like historical architecture, Michael Jackson information,
Kurt Cobain, Rivers Como.
That's right. Yeah. That one too. Just a lot of different stuff that you get into, and it's all very fascinating. So I was telling Monique, we got to talk to this guy. We got to talk to this guy.
Yes.
So I'm really psyched to have you here so we can jump into a lot of these topics. So how did you get into like, look, how did you get into like where you are now, I guess? Like, how did you come to this point in your life?
Well, I think like everybody, well, not maybe everybody, but a lot of people kind of were searching for, kind of confused about what was going on, and I guess specifically kind of around the beginning of 2020, um, and I think I have a different perspective on things, probably because I never knew that anything like truth or Twitter, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
conspiracy theory, Twitter, or truth or Twitter is a very thin line between those two things, as we all know. I didn't know any of these things existed, really. Um, I mean, I don't know. I have a family. I have 3 kids, and I never thought of Twitter as anything other than like a news source per se. And then when the whole COVID stuff started happening, it became, kind of, the outside world, for lack of a better kind of phrase, became, you know, so inside and affecting my family that I started questioning things, and like dominoes started falling, um, and uh, and I kind of went through like almost like a conspiracy theory boot camp of going through them, and so rapidly. I mean, I remember, the whole thing of questioning whether or not COVID
Mm-hmm.
was real or not. I mean, if you're going out, I mean, it's easy if you're a single person, and you have these beliefs that things aren't real. But if you have like a married and you're bringing it home to your children, you don't want to get your kids sick. I mean, there was literally conversations where like, oh, if you're irresponsible, if the kids end up in the hospital, it's going to be your fault. I mean, those are real conversations that happened,
Right.
uh, in the beginning of 2020 with a lot of people, and probably still to this day. I mean, where I live, I mean, most people think that this stuff is very, very real. But and maybe like on Twitter, that's one of the reasons why I enjoy it so much. It's like you can actually go there and speak to other people who have the same mindset, and aren't in this kind of like paranoia basket of things. And so I guess I went through the conspiracy theory kind of stuff, and I kind of started out like everybody. I mean, I started out with the information that was really kind of most in your face at that time. I mean, if anybody logged into Twitter and kind of was searching for the, it sounds quite corny, but searching for the truth,
Hmm.
you know, the truth was there in the form of the Q stuff. That's the most in your face kind of stuff. Uh, and I was talking, yesterday with Human Vibration and Rambo about how, it's almost like overnight, so many of these accounts just disappeared at the beginning of this year,
Yeah.
which leads me to think that a lot of the accounts weren't even real, because you can't just turn people off like that, like a switch. And it seems like it really happened like that.
Yeah.
So I just went like sequentially went from, kind of thinking I had a grasp on understanding what was going on, and the everything just started going into, when I got to a certain point, I thought to myself, you know what, you know, I had never really looked into 9/11, so somehow I ended up into that subject, and I got fascinated by it, and I kind of used the my line of thinking was that if 9/11 was a lie, then this could very well be a lie, because nobody that I was friends with at the time was even questioning whether or not it was real or not. Nobody around me.
What was the reaction when you questioned that from from originally, like, did you, to anyone you knew in person, did you mention anything, feel it out and kind of see what the vibe was about it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess in my my real life per
Yeah.
se, uh, I'm still looked at it like as a leper for thinking these things. A lot less than in the beginning. I mean, they were talking. It put a strain on my marriage, to say the least. With one person thinking it's real, one person, thinking the way I do. But the whole COVID stuff was kind of quick to come to the conclusion that it wasn't real. It never felt real, which is the reason kind of why I started questioning it. I mean, it was like a kinesthetic reaction of, this doesn't feel right. I mean,
Hmm.
just the whole thing was like swarming. It's like being on a bad date, and the energy's wrong. You just know it's wrong in your bones. And but I didn't have any way to understand what I was feeling because I wasn't from the conspiracy theory world. I wasn't from the truth or Twitter world. So I had no framework in which to place that. So I kind of did it kind of like a backwards extrapolation with 9/11. And then, from 9/11, realizing that was, the thing with 9/11 is with 9/11, I kind of went down the whole thing of that it was a controlled demolition. And it kind of went through the whole conspiracy theory food chain.
Right.
Until I got to the thing of the whole thing was like a lie and the planes weren't even real. I mean, I went from the John Corbett stuff, to it could be Zionists and all these kind of like foreign actors and all these things.
Yeah.
And then I ended up with Judy Wood, and kind of almost like almost like the perfect kind of way to go to the story, and the way that it's set up with all these different groups telling you what the truth is, and I remember with the Judy Wood, I remember speaking to somebody and telling them the Judy Wood theory, and the person saying, "So you're telling me that the U.S. government set off nuclear weapons in downtown Manhattan?" And when the person said that to me, I kind of realized just how flaky the whole thing was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after the Judy Wood stuff, and then led me to the whole kind of, I guess, a very kind of limited, not limited, but the smallest kind of fraction of the conspiracy world looks at it as, the U.S. government did it. And there weren't even really people in the buildings at the time. And that really pushed me over the edge, because I live in New York. I grew up around this. I mean, a few days after 9/11, I came back from college and actually drove into Manhattan. I remember seeing the smoke coming up. I mean, it was, I wouldn't say traumatic, because not like I didn't lose anybody in the situation, but psychologically, I think it messed up all of us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, when that came out, and I realized that, like, the firefighter stories, and like the levels of deception were so big that it kind of opened a floodgate where I didn't have a problem after that not acting, but translating that feeling that I had that things weren't right. And then shortly after the 9/11 realization, the George Floyd thing happened. And that really, I was like, this is all over again. Because in New York, there was like, they were supposedly blocking the Brooklyn Bridge with protesters and rioting and all these kind of stories, but I couldn't see anything around me. I would go into downtown Brooklyn, an area where you think that this stuff is going on, and black and white people, we're talking with each other, and it's normal. But yet you go on, the news, and you hear all these crazy stories. And so I was like, what's going on? And I started talking to as many people as I could. It's just, the level of deception was just so big.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding. Huh.
Well, one of the things we've been saying over the past year is like, don't trust the news, because it paints this picture like these places are war zones and it's terrible out there. But when you go out, like, we live in a city, and when we go out, it's fine. There's, we're polite to people. People are polite to us. And you go to the supermarket, it's not crazy people freaking out, yeah, shelves are bare, but I mean, that's easy to manipulate. But it's not what they're portraying it to be on your screens.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about it is that it wasn't just the mainstream media that I recognized that was doing it. It was also the quote unquote alternative media. It was all the accounts on Twitter that people will think are independent. Because I got into, certain kind of characters, I guess. Like, I went to sequentially down the line of things, like for the Q stuff. I think I was exposed to the Cappy character. And
Yeah.
that was a mind-blowing experience that just, rocked my world briefly, thankfully, but still, I mean, that. And then I think of young Pharaoh and his whole interpretation of the riots in Minnesota, and showing the imagery of remember the guy with the umbrella who set fire to the Bridgestone place.
Yeah.
It basically set the whole riot in motion.
Right.
You know, and there's a police officer, and young Farrow is telling people, myself included, and believing them, that these were deep state actors, and all these layers of it, and it's all bullshit. And now I can look back and realize how just crappy it was. But there's a perfect example of controlled opposition kind of storytellers, like a young Farrow type people who, you know, people who are impressionable, people who are confused, people looking for answers. Where do they go? They go where other people who are similar, or they're asking the same questions. And unfortunately, 9 out of 10, probably 9.5 out of 10 people that they're exposed to who are gonna have a coherent idea of what's going on are gonna be lying to people. So I was a perfect candidate to fall into the human vibration way of looking at things. Let's put it that way. I was ripe for the pillaging.
But obviously, like, you've evolved and you've grown and you've come up with all these great ways of looking at things. And to say the least, it's interesting whether or not people agree with it, or it's not even like mentally agree, but just what they feel inside. Because I think at the end of the day, you have to go with what you feel is right. But yeah, you bring a lot of great points to light. And that's one of the things that I think we appreciate so much about your Twitter feed, is just all the different things like you're throwing out there. And it's just like, where do you get this? It's great.
Thanks.
So I want to know, how much time do you spend looking into these different things, or is it just somehow come across your path?
I don't know. It's kind of like a car crash where just things just happen by happenstance. I don't really set out to look at certain issues, but I think it also, what I think with Twitter, the interesting thing about Twitter is that you have all. I mean, I used to look at Twitter as like just as a tool to get like news source information. Now I think Twitter, you know, if looked at in the proper way, I mean, just like a gun could be like a method of self-defense, and a gun could also be something, you know, a child can kill himself by accident. You know, Twitter is a great thing if, depending upon the people that you're in contact with. And there's so many intelligent people out there that, you know, I'll post something and then somebody kind of says another comment and that leads me to something else. It's almost like, you know, when you go into Wikipedia and you start looking up one thing and you'll end up like 2 hours later on a completely different subject because you went to hyperlink. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. And by the end of it, you're all over the world. I mean, Twitter is very, very similar, and each person is a hyperlink unto themselves.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can pick their brain, and you know, the feeling, you know, you can feel people. You can see there's certain accounts like fear porn type accounts, people who I get a lot of pushback when I say things like the vaccine isn't really killing people. And, you know, the same people who are telling people that everyone's dying from COVID. I mean, that's the interesting thing about Truth or Twitter. The Truth or Twitter kind of went through a thing of, you know, okay, so you have all of these people that are saying the government's lying to us, the government's lying to us, the government's lying to us. Then the same news source puts across the screen that people are dying from the vaccine. And they're like, oh, the government's telling us the truth now. It's like, well, wait a second. A poisoned well is a poisoned well. I mean, and to wrap your head around the idea of, wait a second, we're being lied about. You know, if you go, like I would say, that the people who maybe not have fallen for the COVID psyop, the vax psyop was there for those people. So it's like, if COVID didn't get you, the vax thing got you.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like Republicans and Democrats. If you're not one, you're probably the other. And then there's that small group kind of in between or outside of that doesn't fall into place.
Yeah, I mean, and for those people, it's like I think we have a great thing with the community we have and people. But I was going back to the thing of like being able to sense people's energy. There's certain people, like the words that they choose. You can feel it. If you were like in a room with them, you could feel it. And I think that's one of the cool things about Twitter. I mean, you can really, the vibrations, you really pick up with the people. I'm not new agey or anything, but I believe in all that stuff. And I think what people might like is that, you know, I'm interested in it, so I talk about it. And I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? I mean, you know, people aren't going to like me because of something I said on Twitter that's not worth it anyway. So I just started being myself and really, and being, and having the whole avatar, you know, nom de plume Murph stuff. It makes that a lot easier because I
Mhm.
don't, you know, I'm not thinking that people know where I, you know, who I am, where I live per se, and something like that. So they're not judging me. They're judging this Murph character
Right.
who's not really a character. It's really me. But you know, that's the cool thing about it. A friend of mine who I hadn't been in contact with much at all for a long time, I sent him the first podcast I did, and and I hadn't spoken to him in a while. So I think I was just trying to, like, you know, just kind of shock and awe him with these crazy ideas. I don't know. But he wrote to me. He's like, you know, I was listening to this, and is that a persona, or do you really believe those things? You know, and it was interesting because, you know, I could tell right then and there that definitely he wasn't thinking any of these things. He was actually very offended by a lot of things that I said.
Wow.
Huh.
So,
People need to stop being so offended by words.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what we've been, when I say we, I mean collectively society. That's kind of, we've been brainwashed into that,
well,
just with everything, you know?
well, it goes well with it's a corollary of the victim. If we have a religion now, it's not God, it's not Christ, it's not Muhammad, it's victimology.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because
Hmm.
I've been saying it for a while. When I was growing up, nobody wanted to be a victim. It was like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and move forward. And now it's like opposite land. And everybody wants to be a victim because it's attention, it's their 15 minutes of fame. It's like the wrong kind of energy, though. And I don't know. It just does not make any sense to me, but that's how so many people are.
Yeah, I mean, with the COVID stuff, I mean, you know, like I said, if COVID didn't get you, the vax, you know, the mRNA,
Mhm.
Bill Gates and his scary crap. I mean, I'm of the mindset that these characters are created not to instill us with fear, but to wake our asses up and to hit us over the head. And I mean, like, you know, a Fauci character who, you know, if a character can loom so large in the public's consciousness or consciousness, yeah, that he's going to take away your life force. You know, the intention isn't to truly take someone's life force, unless you think the world is such a bad, dark, evil place that's really the focal point of what people are doing.
Mhm.
The focal, you know, the reason behind it is to remind people that there is a life force to be taken away in the first place.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
love the way you look at things. That's awesome. That's,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. It's a way that I've kind of, you know, try to figure it out for myself.
yeah.
Uh, and then when I'm finding other people, and, you know, other people kind of help me along with all of everything, and you know, the whole thing of characters not existing, and character, and once I kind of realized the characters not existing stuff, it's very more easy to look at it as, you know, like dramatic art. I mean, it's really not much different. I mean, I don't think we're being run now by our leaders. I think we're being run by writers. And people, like, when people talk about AI, like, there's some AI out there, and AI is, you know, reaching into our brains when we sleep and taking our thoughts out and scrambling us all up. That's crazy, stupid science fiction crap. For people who don't have the imagination to think that people can actually write things and think of stories to tell,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
they can't express themselves. So how could they think somebody else could express themselves, right? These writers, like the movies that we see that people say predictive programming and that kind of thing, it's really no different.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're 100% right.
And I think people get confused when it comes to the algorithms, the AI. There are things that when you are online, yes, the computer takes the data and does stuff with your information. Whatever you're searching for, it takes that, it shows you what you want to see. But in terms of like going in and stealing your thoughts, yes, I don't
No, I
think
think that's,
that's,
yeah, that's nonsense too. Right? I
yeah,
agree. I agree.
little nonsensical.
You see a lot of people on Twitter even saying things like, well, oh, you know, Twitter didn't like my last post, so I'm in the doghouse for like 7 days or something. And I don't know. I never have a damn problem. I don't know what's going on, but I think a lot of times people say that the algos are pushing them down, or you see these fear porn accounts now who are complaining that the algos aren't pushing them, when say a year ago the algos were pushing them and suppressing anybody who's saying that things aren't so bad. I mean, it's almost like a revolutionary thing to come out and say things are okay.
Yeah.
I remember I said it was at some point last year on one of the episodes, and I'm like, I've been having a great 2020, and I was like, I know I'm gonna get hate for that, but I don't care. It's me telling the truth. But yeah, I think there's a lot of backlash if you're not experiencing the hardships. And it's like we all experience our hardships in our own different ways, and not one is worse than another. It's just different for everybody. But it's the fact that people don't even feel comfortable being honest and speaking their own truth about stuff. Like, yeah, I know that this seemed to be a shitty year for everybody, but I had a great year. Like, that's a bad thing, apparently. It's so weird. Like, you'd want people to say, I had a great year, and you want to be happy for them, but that's not the vibe that gets put out.
Well, I think to a large extent now, Truth or Twitter exists primarily to push the anti-vax narrative, because because that's considered the truth in the conspiracy world theory, in the conspiracy theory world. The conspiracy theory world is not going to say, oh, it's actually a live exercise and they're trying to do a psychological study to see how people react to different things. They're not going to say that because it's not sexy.
Right.
Yeah.
Not sexy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's I love the way you look at things, man. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
A lot of what's been going on, I look at it as like, especially like government trying to see how far they can push us, how much they can get away with, how much can they take away from us. I've looked at it that way. I've tried to look at it multiple different ways. Like, I like trying to look at things from different perspectives, but I don't know. It's just, there's so many different things that come up and so many other bits of information. It's sometimes hard to tell what you feel is really going on, because you get so bombarded by like all these other viewpoints, and I feel like it's done on purpose. It's like, keep everyone confused.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was talking last night with these guys, and someone had made a comment about confusion. Like, how many people we think talk about the mud flood, right?
Mm-hmm.
The mud flood is a literal and figurative muddying of the waters, and it's not like like our whole consciousness, like our history. We don't know what happened prior to the mud flood. I mean, everything gets so confusing. Everything's confusing after that, but specifically prior to in the mid 19th century, everything just gets kind of, well, we don't know what happened before. So let's just start. History kind of starts on Wiki. I made a post, on Wikipedia. History starts in 1850. I mean,
It's crazy. Yeah, that's just nuts. Yeah, it makes me wonder if this whole great reset and everything that they're pushing, or all that branding, is that really what we're going through right now? Again, some type of a societal reset. I mean,
yeah,
who
I do.
knows?
And I think the Tartaria storyline, right, and some things about the Tartaria story, I'm firmly with. Some of them I think are just crazy, wacky kind of things that don't make any sense. I mean, we have to acknowledge that anything that's before us, if it's not us that are bringing it, that's bringing it to light, it's put there for a purpose.
Yeah.
So we were primed with the Tartaria stuff. Kind of started. Tartaria never really was on the airwaves prior to 2017, right? The same year that the Q stuff came out. So the Tartaria stuff is hand in glove with the Q stuff, and fit in with the whole Tesla story of Tesla died and John Trump, who was supposedly Trump's uncle, right?
That's
That whole
right.
story. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end, the book end of the Fall of the Cabal crap, the trilogy with 10 movie thing. I watched it myself. I don't know how I did, but I did at the time, and I believed it. But by in the last episode, it talks about how Trump, like that John Trump had Tesla's information and supposedly was a time traveler, and they introduced all these crazy concepts with Trump and Baron Trump, the son, and the book from the late 1800s that was about
Yeah.
Baron. It was called Baron Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all created to fit a narrative, all of it. So with the Tartaria stuff, I mean, we don't know what happened. We don't know who built these buildings. We don't know if it was human beings even. I mean, some of these buildings are so impressive. I mean, we can't build these things today with our technology that we think we have and all the money we have. We can't come close to the structures that exist. They're still standing today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I mean, it's funny. I was actually talking about this with my son the other day about how history it's basically it's all made up. I mean,
It's a
really,
story.
if we weren't there to witness it or hear stories from loved ones or people that we trust, who can hand down firsthand accounts of things happening, you can't really trust it. It's just you have to believe something that you're told either in a book or in a classroom or whatever. You don't really know for sure. So when I was speaking to my son about it, I just told him, look, it's good for you to know this stuff because that's what people are taught. That's what people know. So if somebody references it, it's good for you to know it, but don't put too much stock and faith into it because who knows if it's true? You weren't there. I wasn't there. We don't know. We just know what we're told, what is presented to us.
And I think right now, especially with everything we've seen over the past few years, how people are trying to change history. They're trying to alter because they don't like how bad history was and they want to change it so it doesn't hurt people's feelings. It's like the fact that they're trying to do that should show right there that if it's being done now, who's to say that didn't happen in the past? Who's to say the history that we've been taught isn't just somebody's version of what they want us to know?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I was a history major in college, and I took it really seriously. And so when when I saw the first really good video on the Tartaria, I was sold, and it really rocked my world. And for a while there, I was really focused on Tartaria, and now I think I speak more about current events than trying to I mean, at one time I was trying to figure out where Atlantis was and all that kind of stuff. And really, I mean, if you get into the history stuff now with all the information that's available, I mean, there's people who really think that Abraham Lincoln was black. There really are.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Really?
Yes.
I've never heard that. No
Yes.
kidding.
And they have all of this information that if somebody's ready to believe that's readily available for them to have backup to say, yeah, this kind of makes some sense. Like there's photographs where it looks like Abraham Lincoln's black. I'm just saying that there's so much information that's put out there. And I think even a lot of the imagery that you see of these old photographs from the 19th century, and all of them, for example, you can't see a cloud in any of these photographs, right? Yeah, you see these photographs with these impressive buildings and structures that we can't build today, but yet the people in the streets are driving horse-drawn carriages. So like there's a huge disconnect as to what's going on here, and were these images all fabricated, and the buildings we know are there, but were people really driving horse and buggies? Because at the same time, you have photographs of people in horse-drawn carriages. We have proof and information showing that there was electric cars going back to the mid 19th century. But so if that's the case, then why are horses all in the streets? There's all these horses in the streets. Obviously you're going to need stables for horses. So otherwise, I mean, and there's none. So, I mean, also another thing I read the other day is, one interesting thing is this: with all of these structures all over the world, right, that were like, and say in the 19th century, in the 18th century, or even earlier, where are all the bricks from? Where they get all the damn bricks? There's not one photograph of a brick factory anywhere. Where are the bricks? I mean, how many bricks go into the structures just in one country alone? The whole
Yeah.
world? And you should have brick factories all over the place.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
None of them. So I'm thinking, you know what? History is so screwed up that it could very well have been like a prior civilization of a different kind of form of life that created these structures and then left, and then human beings came up and found them. Because if you look at it from a logical perspective, none of it makes any sense. None of it. None of it. So,
My mind's blown right now. Like, whoa, that's yeah,
it.
wow, yeah, that's
and they had a different understanding of electromagnetic energy than we have. I mean, the electricity that we use to power our devices now is different. I don't know exactly how. I don't have a physics background or a math background. I did awful on my SATs with the math thing. Awful.
you and me both.
Awful. I kicked ass in the English stuff, but in the math stuff, I did awful. But the energy that they had with all the spires on the top of these buildings and all the metal work that conducted electricity, conducted the energy. I mean, we don't exactly understand how any of it worked, and there's nobody to really explain it properly to this day. But they were very advanced, not just in the structures, but in the energy. I mean, even fireplaces. Fireplaces are called fireplaces, but even the building that I live in Brooklyn, it's like an old brownstone. They say it was built in 1848, but I don't think it was. I think it could have been hundreds of years prior to that. And really, all you have to do with these structures, I mean, most of the buildings that you look at and you see brownstones, and you see like a smooth surface. If you go 3 inches, dig out, take off maybe a few inches of that surface, all of these structures are all brick. So it would mean that initially they were brick structures, and then say 200 years afterwards, then they put a smooth surface on it. You know what I mean? So these structures could have been 600 years old. We don't know. But anyway, going back to the fireplace thing, is the fireplaces, they weren't used for fire.
Okay.
What were they used for?
Radiant energy. Connected with spires on the roof, right? Collecting energy, going down with the flue and everything like that. An interconnected system. These buildings had radiant heat, central heat.
Interesting.
Wow.
I'm gonna have to look into that now.
What? Wow.
Using metals like Mercury. Mercury is all over the place. The statues of Mercury all over this country, all the United States. I mean, statues in Rochester, New York, statues in not Columbus, in Cleveland, Ohio, on the bridge. These huge stone structures. I mean, why was Mercury all over the place? They understood the power of Mercury, which we're told is some hugely dangerous substance, and we don't, and no one ever sees it, but it was everywhere for thousands of years. Mercury. Anyway, I don't know. I got into that, but.
Wow.
Well, one of the things that Alex has been saying for a while is like they talk about like, oh, lead paint. You don't want lead paint. And it's like, but is it really bad, or are they just saying that? Like it just makes you question, because you can use lead to shield yourself.
Oh yeah,
from radiation.
The lead paint stuff is all crap too. Mercury, the whole thing that, I mean, I don't think people can't. I wouldn't recommend people drink mercury, but there's stories of like Genghis Khan per se, who supposedly drank mercury. Or maybe it wasn't Genghis Khan, but it was some historical figure. I mean, I don't know how true it is, but the Indian yogis talk about the healing benefits of mercury, and in their temples they have the lingams, those fountain-like structures.
Mhm.
And those, a lot of fountains that we have all over the world, fountains weren't water fountains. Fountains, we used mercury. I mean, and there's mercury lamps. If you put, people would put mercury in a ball-shaped, glass, and just from moving it around, keeping it moving, a light would come from it.
Huh.
I mean, I remember as a kid, we had it in our thermometers. I
Yeah.
turned out fine,
Yeah,
I think. One might argue.
we've been lied to about so many different things.
I agree.
That it's mind blowing. So, I mean, it was interesting because you see even articles nowadays, and people are arguing whether or not it's real or fake and everything like that. But there's just so much more. That I think a large part of the reason why these stories are out is to consume people's energy, so they're not talking about, is mercury really dangerous, guys? Is lead paint really dangerous? Why are all these things considered true? Because we're busy talking about George Floyd and whether or not he had legs or not, or the lady who just died in England. I suppose it was murdered, and she's 33, and it was, the news report came out at 3:03 p.m. or something,
Yeah.
and on 3/3, and I mean, it's almost like you're talking about the victim victimology stuff. Like, the story wasn't about a woman per se. It was more about how men are dangerous.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of want to go off on a tangent about that, the stupidity of it.
I don't, whatever.
No, it's yeah, because we were talking about it earlier with Rambo and Human Vibration, and because we weren't super familiar with this, and he was explaining it to us, and again, it's like, yeah, that portraying that whole, oh, if you see a woman, just stay away because she could get uncomfortable, and it's like, I don't want people being uncomfortable because I'm walking by as a female. It's like, I can handle myself. And if I can't, then sucks to be me, but I'm not going to live in fear because some dude's walking by me or 12 dudes are going by me. Again, it's that fear. It's to get women afraid. It's to get men feeling afraid. Are they going to think I'm going to do something? It's just that fear. It's awful.
Everything is so psychological now. Like everything.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. Yeah, we were not familiar with that story about her. I personally, I don't watch the news anymore at all.
They don't have cable.
And even my on Twitter, I never go to the news feed anymore. I just don't even bother. I just don't give my energy to any of that stuff anymore.
Life is better
if I can help it, and that's why.
Yeah, if I want to know what's going on, I go outside and take a look around.
Pretty much.
It's very similar to the George Floyd stuff, where, I mean, I don't know. I didn't sense any or perceive any racial tension going on, and then the story happens, and all of a sudden you hear everyone talking about, people would have the idea that Black people are being murdered every 2 minutes all over, every city in the country.
Definitely not happening in New Hampshire. I'll tell you that.
Well, I mean, it's you have these stories happen, and in the real world, no one's really talking about it. But I think really at least half of the accounts on Twitter are just fake, and kind of. I don't think it's AI. I think they're really just bots.
Yeah.
Bot accounts
Absolutely.
that are just like, you're getting paid $15 an hour just to like write shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree. I mean, it's everywhere. And I mean, you have to question everything. It's so hard to discern. If you're not careful, you can get caught up in a lot of just fake, negative kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Speaking of fake, we want to talk to you about something you tweeted, and it really intrigued us, about Michael Jackson and Jack Crooner.
Oh, it's my favorite subject.
Awesome.
I love this.
This is
My
great.
favorite
Yes.
subject, the third subject.
Michael Jackson is a genius, and if he is still alive, even more so. Then that, you know, like I'm gonna let you talk though. Please tell us this.
Yes.
I can't remember how it came across. It came to me. I think I don't know where I saw it first, but anyway, when I saw it at first, as typical with all of these things, I think, oh, this doesn't make much sense, and then was intrigued, like all of us. I mean, who didn't love Michael Jackson when they were young? I remember, like, trying to get the black leather pants. I mean, who didn't? And the black jacket, or the red jacket with all the zippers.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
The glove.
The Beat It jacket, right?
Yeah.
That's when he wore Beat It, right?
The
Yeah.
beat it jacket, and
Mhm.
I mean, there was a point in time where he was like cool,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like kind of the way that we look at stars now, kind of cool. It was beyond. I don't know. There was something strange about the whole situation.
Yeah, he was a whole other level of star. Yeah, I mean, I can't even think of anybody. I'm very removed from pop culture today. I don't know much about pop culture now, so I couldn't even compare or say anybody that could even come close to comparing to the type of level of star that Michael Jackson was. I if there is, I don't know who it is. Who would even come close?
Well, I mean, people, different, like, the people talk about the famous products around the world, like, like Coca-Cola or Marlboro, like instantly recognizable things.
Yeah.
I think really there's a case to be made for him being the most famous person in the world.
Yeah.
Most recognizable, I'd say, and probably the most loved or talked about. I mean, just fascinated everybody. Even if people don't like his music per se, they kind of like him, something about him, and that's why all the stories of. I mean, it was a real loose period of getting into the whole stuff of him being with the underage people,
Mhm.
Yeah.
underage stuff, and I think a lot of that was contrived, and he kind of welcomed it. And I think I don't think he wanted to be Michael Jackson forever. And it's an interesting thing of one of the reasons why I like the subject so much is there's so many different, like, psychological things that come up. Like, if you were the most famous person in the world, you literally, like, you can't leave your house.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You can't deal with, like, even like staff, because people are going to be offered $100,000 to tell you, like, your dirty underwear. I mean,
Mhm.
what kind of life is that?
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of life do you have if you have $1 billion but can't go to the store with your kids without being harassed by anybody?
Mhm.
Instantly recognizable. So I think, for a large extent, that he always wanted to. Well, one thing about Michael Jackson is, I mean, you have to realize he was a musical star since he was like 5 years old.
Mhm.
So if you're in that world for that long, he became more exposed to film, theater, and things like that. And remember the Thriller video with John
Oh
Hughes?
The
yeah.
makeup.
Yeah, I mean, the makeup, right? There was a
That
real
was yeah.
there was a real theme through his life of he also the eccentric millionaire who bought the Elephant Man mask or something like that. He paid a huge amount of money for the Elephant Man, something to do with the Elephant Man.
Mhm.
Um, anyway, he was always intrigued with masks and being a different character, and a guy who's that famous. I mean, of course he's gonna be. I
Yeah.
mean, right? I mean, how do
Makes
you?
sense. Yeah.
Mhm.
You can't hide when you're Michael Jackson.
Right.
He just and that's one of the reasons why I believe it's so easy for me to believe that Jack Crooner is Michael Jackson now, because physically he moves like Michael Jackson. I mean, you can put Michael. And so I was joking around, like the Jack Crooner videos where he's singing, they're all layered with the auto tune, so you can't tell it's Michael Jackson,
Mhm.
but you can feel it's Michael Jackson, even through all those layers of all technology, right?
Mhm.
Michael Jackson is a star that burns so bright. You can tell it's him through layers of shit.
Love that. Well, I saw your post about it, and you included a video. Oh, it was doing Frank Sinatra, Jack Crooner, and the Miami Blues. Is it Miami Blues
I mean,
Band? Or
blues club or blues band, yeah.
yeah. And they're doing I've Got You Under My Skin by Frank Sinatra. And so I watched the video and then I started looking, okay, who is this guy? So I find his website and it's about him. All right, let's learn about who Jack Crooner is. And it just talks about a little paragraph about when he was a kid, his dad took him to see Frank Sinatra. Okay, that's
Michael.
it.
That's Michael. That's
That
Michael.
was it. And then I started looking. And there's a picture where they're at some kind of party and they have this like woman, she's in a dress and like big blonde hair. And it looks like he has a black wig on. So it's kind of obvious it's a wig. But I noticed he has glasses on, and because it's like a side profile, and his ear, the way the glasses are, it's pushing his ear down. So like if you naturally, like I wear glasses, when I put my glasses on, the sides that go around my ear, it doesn't push my, like actually hold my ear down so it's sticking out. It's just not normal. It's just really bizarre looking. And the other weird thing is a couple weeks later, I went to go find it again and I couldn't find that picture. So I was like, did I mess up the search? What's going on? But I've looked at a bunch of pictures of him performing, quote unquote. I can't find any of him sweating. He's on stage under lights, pants, shirt, jacket. I've been on stage before. I've been in bands and I performed. You get sweaty under those lights. It gets hot. And especially if you're moving around, no sweat. I couldn't find any with him sweating. I thought that was a little bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, there's videos of him where he's squeezing at his cheek, playfully, he has his iPhone at the camera saying, "I'm not Michael Jackson." And at the same time he's doing that, he's pulling on his cheek where you can tell that is not his cheek. It looks like rubber. So he's saying he's not Michael. And that's the kind of what art really is saying you're not something, but at the same time showing that you are something.
Yeah.
And we've lost the ability to differentiate between magic and illusion.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost the ability to differentiate between a real tragedy and a fake tragedy like the George Floyd stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, anybody could look at that and say, you know what, this is so obvious, so in your face that this can't really be the way that things happen. This doesn't seem organic. So the interesting thing about the Jack Crooner character is that he's winking at us saying, "I'm Michael," but he can't say that he's Michael, and he also doesn't want to say that he's Michael.
Mm-hmm.
But the cool thing about the Jack thing, that kind of, if it wasn't for these certain facts, I would find it more difficult to believe, is there's plenty of photographs of Jack Crooner hanging out with the Jackson kids.
Yeah, I mean, there's videos of him hanging out with his kids.
Yeah, so if Jack Crooner is some weird karaoke fruitcake guy who's trying to make trying to grift on the idea that he's Michael Jackson, Michael Jackson's not alive, it's not like the Jackson kids are hurting for money or hurting for attention.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be hanging out with a guy who's trying to loosh off of your father's legacy, your dead father? No.
Again, it just feels like he's putting it out there, like, Jack Crooner with, Prince Jackson in Miami, Florida. And it's like, oh, hey, we're in Miami. We're just hanging out. It's like putting it in your face, like rubbing it in your face, because it's like, but prove it.
Well, I don't think it's even that. I think even if there was enough, I think there's enough information to not prove it. But I mean, also think he's singing Frank Sinatra songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's singing Beatles songs.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the songs that Michael Jackson actually literally owns.
Yes.
Doesn't he own them? Yeah, I was going to say,
Yes.
that's right. Yeah.
The Blackbird video, the way he's standing.
Oh, that's great.
It's like you're just that, like the way he is, his stature. It's like you look like Michael Jackson, just like the way you're standing. It's crazy. Sorry, my necklace is banging against the table. I apologize.
And he had become white. I mean, this by by the late 90s, he was basically white. He was a white guy. So I think even going back to the Pepsi commercial in 1983 or 4 or something around there, when Thriller came out, I think that all of this stuff was all staged to, like, to go into a thing where he'd have to have these um, procedures to lighten his skin. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Knowing that eventually he didn't want to be Michael Jackson. And how could you get away with not being Michael Jackson, or when you're actually Michael Jackson? I mean, you literally have to transform yourself to a
Yeah.
different color, because Michael Jackson is so recognizable. I
Yeah.
mean, the guy could go to a restaurant and order something, and you could you could hear it in his voice.
Yeah.
Something magical about him. I mean, the Blackbird video, it gave me the goosebumps, because you feel the spirit of I don't know, whatever. I mean, I still listen to like old Michael Jackson songs and get like, get sentimental or whatever. I mean, some of it's corny, but whatever. I'm corny sometimes too.
We're all corny. I think.
Yeah.
I'll
Who
tell you.
cares? Like what you like.
Yeah.
Feel what you feel.
If somebody can listen to Man in the Mirror and not get a little bit whatever, then they're not human as far as I'm concerned.
Jackson's stuff. I mean, I still listen to Michael Jackson songs here and there, and I always get it's every time I listen to them, there's a genius there, like that. You again, I can't think of anybody today, or even when Michael Jackson was around, who could compare. Like, who compares to that level of creativity? It's just magical, I guess, is probably the best way of putting it. There was just something, like you said, Man in the Mirror, for example, that song. Yeah, you listen to those songs and just the melodies, the way he sings. If you're watching the videos, the way he moves, there was just nothing comes even close. So for me, I get a little nostalgic if I listen to like Thriller, for example, because I just remember being a kid and running to the next door neighbor's house that had MTV because we didn't have cable, and them calling me, say, "Hey, Thriller's going to be on in 5 minutes," because they used to run commercials saying Thriller's going to be on at this time, and running over there to get ready to watch Thriller. So yeah, there's that nostalgia, but just you listen to he's a genius. I can't even put it into words.
Well, it was also, it's a nostalgia, I guess, for a more innocent time,
Yeah.
Pre-internet time. I mean, you're talking about how we grew up and like the whole bootstrap kind of thing, but in the 80s or whatever. I mean, the way that people in the 80s listening to Van Halen and things like that. Could you imagine them believing in a Pizzagate type story?
Oh no.
No.
No way.
They'd laugh at you.
Yeah.
They'd kick the shit out of you in the bathroom.
Probably. Yep.
Weirdo. Yep. But it became so normalized. All these weird things became normal. And things that were normal became abnormal. I mean, so the Michael Jackson stuff, I guess part of it is nostalgia, part of it is an appreciation for his stuff. But I mean, the songs that the guy sings, the photographs with the children, all of the scene, the information from the actual from the alleged death. I mean, the crazy story of Dr. Conrad Murray, right? And then Dr. Conrad Murray was prosecuted, and it never really went anywhere. It was just a real Lucy story with the propofol. Propofol.
Is that what it was? It was.
Was it, yeah, propofol, or was it propofol and fentanyl?
It was the doctor allegedly.
So he allegedly was giving
overprescribed
it
or
to
gave him
him
too
so
much?
he could sleep.
Is that what the story was? Okay.
Allegedly, yes.
Okay.
So he could sleep, and he took too much.
Well, yeah, no, but we were so overcome with the emotion at the time that it never even occurred to us that this stuff is so strong, right? It's almost like the George Floyd stuff. George Floyd, in his body from the autopsy, who, by the way, interestingly enough, George Floyd, the guy who did George Floyd's autopsy, I think we could verify this, was the same guy who did Michael Jackson's autopsy.
Interesting.
Come on.
Well, he's the doctor for all these psyops. He did, his name is Michael Baden, and he did not only George Floyd, he also did Epstein.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm almost
Look at
positive
that.
it was George Floyd, but the point of what I was saying is that George Floyd, in his autopsy report, he had uh, levels of fentanyl in the system that he shouldn't have been alive by that point anyway.
Huh.
So
Huh.
that's what confused me a lot with the George Floyd thing, is that all the reports came back with the fentanyl that he had in the system. That much fentanyl in the system, he should have been dead. He shouldn't even been alive at that point. So the idea that Chauvin was the person who killed him didn't make any sense to me. But that was kind of prior till I realized that the whole thing was just rotten.
Yeah.
So rationally speaking, all of us should have been like, wait a second, this is a little bit over the top. Propofol to sleep? I mean, that's what you give somebody like to knock them out, to do like cut off their leg if they need a
Yeah.
leg.
I worked in veterinary medicine for almost 20 years, and we would use it for surgery to, before you give anesthesia, you would use the propofol to kind of get them to the point where you can intubate them. And, like we do it on like dogs, and you give them that, they get down enough where you can intubate them and then start giving them other medication.
Yeah, I don't think he ever had propofol or anything like that. I think a lot of these stories with these, Kurt Cobain, Heath Ledger, even I haven't gotten into the Heath Ledger thing, but
Mhm.
I mean, I can't help it. All these stories of these celebrities who die under these tragic, supposedly tragic circumstances, I can't help but think that they're somehow contrived. Um,
It
I mean,
wouldn't be shocking, especially the ones where there's just so much weird stuff around it or mystery. Like you've brought up Kurt Cobain in your posts, and just how things were off with that. Another weird one to think about is Britney Murphy, where
oh,
she just randomly died.
very strange.
And
Yeah,
there was all these weird circumstances around her. It's just very interesting, like to go in and look at them all.
have you ever seen the video where the husband, that Simon Monjack character, who also died?
Yes, he died too. And that was the other weird thing, because then her husband died.
This is Britney Murphy's husband.
Yeah.
Okay.
And prior to him dying, he was doing interviews with news stations, investigative journalism stations, whatever, and showing video of the bedroom, showing video of the bathroom that she died in, and talking about her as if she was still alive. It was just, the whole thing was so bizarre. And they live with the mother. The mother lived in the same house, right? That the Simon Munjak character and the Britney character both died in. It's such a crazy story. All of
Wow.
it, all of these stories are just
But
so
that's the thing, like you start thinking back like to what you remember, and you remember all these weird things, and then there's always some kind of theory or conspiracy theory about it. Like Kurt Cobain, it was he was a
crazy.
heroin addict who killed himself, but then you had the Courtney Love was involved, and then the rabbit hole gets deeper. Like, oh, wasn't like her dad in the CIA or something like that?
I think so.
Yes, the dad was put to CIA supposedly, and again, who the hell knows with these stories?
Sure.
It all sounds interesting and chat,
Mhm.
but we all fail to realize that. Like I think I said one time, I said, we all forgot that Courtney Love is an actress.
Mhm.
I mean, because people
Yeah.
were saying, "Oh yeah, Courtney Love had him taken out." Because I would do a post on, okay, there's no blood at the death scene, right? If somebody shoots their head off with a shotgun, their head's going to be all over the room. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a shotgun,
Right.
right? And the electrician who found Kurt Cobain couldn't see blood, didn't see blood, and
Well,
actually
I'm like thinking, is it birdshot or buckshot? Because that can make a little difference, but at close range.
Still get blood though.
Yeah.
close range. The electrician left, thinking that Cobain was sleeping.
Yeah.
When
It's weird.
he initially found Cobain, he was sleeping, and there's no blood anywhere. I mean, it's almost like even Cobain's music, it was all set up to the point where if you heard that the guy killed himself, you'd be, well, he kind of was telling you that he was going to kill himself, like in every single song he was singing, and it really begs the question as to whether or not like all of these things are like put on, affectations, like the tortured musical genius, who always wants to kill himself, and really he's just an artist, and he's trying to sell albums. I mean,
Yeah.
like anything else. I mean, it's sexy. And there was something, and there was like a cottage industry that popped up after, because Kurt Cobain, that was really kind of close to me. And when he killed him, when it happened, it was 1994. I was a senior in high school, and I remember it was after school, and we all had went to like the park. Like everyone in high school, there's a park,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
they're sitting in the car and like filling the bowls up, that kind of crap. And as we're sitting there listening to the regular radio station, the music was interrupted, and a guy just came on and just announced it. And we all sat there dazed, like, what? Like, it was like, it rocked our world. And afterwards, there was like endless books, movies. There was the Gus Van Sant movie, Last Days, that was just about like his final, before it happened. And it was the classic kind of making a hero out of these people.
What's weird for me is I remember when I found out he died, I was like 13, but I love Nirvana. I mean, I was, I grew up kind of like metalhead, grunge, alternative punk rock. And I remember like hearing he died and just thinking like, oh, okay, that sucks. But I mean, I had friends who were just like bawling their eyes out. They were so sad. And I remember thinking like, I just don't feel anything. I don't like what's something wrong with me, because I liked his music too, but I never felt that like, and I remember trying to pretend to be more upset than I was, just so people weren't like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just weird. I just was like, ugh. And when Michael Jackson died, I remember a friend of ours, he loves Michael Jackson. And all I did that day was bust his chops about like how he's like a pedophile and a child molester, because it was grinding his gears, like just like the guy died. And I'm just like pushing his buttons, finding the humor in it. And I'm
You're
like,
so heartless.
oh, and it's like, I'm a freaking empath. And I'm just like, oh, I'm just not feeling anything. And now I start to wonder, did I not feel anything because maybe it just wasn't real? I don't know.
Could be.
It would make me feel better. I think.
I fell for all of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I wasn't prior to March, or March 2020, February, January. I wasn't paying attention to any of these things. I believed in all of everybody that died. Yep, news tell me the truth. I never questioned anything really.
Yeah.
But the Michael Jackson story is fascinating because even if you tell people the truth, like nobody would believe it. So it's like it's the ultimate escape. I
Yeah.
call it the greatest practical joke ever, and the greatest escape, because if he is still alive, which I do believe he's still alive, Paul McCartney is not the wealthiest musician alive. It's Michael Jackson, and nobody knows it, and everyone thinks he's dead, and he's sold more albums probably since he died than when he was alive.
Well, look at Michael Jackson. Look at Elvis. Like, what do? They turn it into a joke. Like, oh, Elvis is still alive. It's like that gaslighting. It's like, oh, you think that? We're just gonna make fun of it, make you think you're crazy. But yeah, like just with what you were saying, I was thinking like, yeah, they turn it into a joke. And if you think that somebody's still alive after they've allegedly passed on, it's like you're a joke. And it's because of the way they portray it. They make fun of it, and they just, and it's like maybe they're doing that on purpose so people don't want to say that out loud to get people thinking.
Yeah, the thing with Jackson also, the death certificate. There's no valid death certificate for Michael Jackson.
Really?
The
You
death certificate,
posted about that too, and I was like, interesting.
the death certificate says Michael Joseph Jackson, and when his legal name is actually Michael Joe, and on his driver's license, birth certificate, and all forms of identification, it's correct spelling Joe. But on this document, it says Joseph, and it's also stamped invalid and not valid to identify, the person, stamped across it. So I'm thinking that, people think about we talk about, the legal hoaxes going on, the legal, the fact that, the arrests done are actually, fake arrests per se.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Look at the insurrection, the whole shaman Viking business.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you have characters there who, like the John Sullivan guy, the guy who was arrested, who was on CNN the same night. Um, I don't think there is a John Sullivan. I don't think he exists. Period.
It's a character.
Yeah, I don't. But I don't think. I think he's actually digital. I don't think there is a John Sullivan, like an actor to even play that role. Because a lot of these roles that you have, like say, like the George Floyd situation, or the Epstein thing, people think, oh, okay, well maybe it wasn't real, and then they have an actor playing it. The difficulty of getting actors, even a crisis actor, if I came to you and said, hey, like someone's a struggling actor, and said, okay, you're a struggling actor, but I'm going to pay you $1 million every month to play this person, right? And who wants to be the role of George Floyd? Who wants to be the guy who died? You know, it's practically very difficult to pull these things off with real people.
Hmm.
And real people talk.
Yeah.
Real people get drunk at a bar and say too much. Real people can get slipped a Mickey by somebody and talk too much.
Yeah.
So the digitizing people is, I think, what is happening a lot now.
Hmm.
Um,
But I think that's why using the word characters works, because regardless of if they're digital or just in makeup or just acting, it's all a character. It's just portraying a role in one way or another.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy because people talk about, and I was thinking about this before I got on with you guys. Um, because I was with my kids, I was I was joking with them. My daughter's she's 12, so she loves TikTok, right?
Okay.
And she's all into that world, you know. And I was always joking around with her, like making fun of TikTok and YouTube personalities and stuff. And now that I'm on YouTube, I joke around with them saying, like, I'm a YouTube personality kid. I tell her I have more followers than you. I have more followers than you. I joke around with her. How many followers do you think I have now? In a competition. I'm in a competition with my 12-year-old daughter about followers and social media stuff, but I don't know.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Here we are, like, yeah, our son is 13 and like we don't let him have any of that. It's like, no, you don't need it.
Yeah, we probably should have went that route, and I'm paying the consequences now. The kids, it's awful. But especially now because I don't know, my daughter, there's no physical school to go to.
Hmm.
There's no buddies like to hang out with, and so we make certain lenient when it comes to certain things, but
Yeah.
it's awful nonetheless. But it's also difficult for me because I'll tell my wife, like, oh, these kids are always on their devices or whatever, and then I'm like addicted to Twitter myself, so I find it difficult to lay down the law when I'm doing it myself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I like personally, like, we hate social media. If we didn't have to do it for like the podcast and for like my own side business that I have, I don't think I'd be on it at all. And so I think that's why, like, a lot of times I just like our Twitter, we don't post a lot of stuff. Like, we don't have a Facebook, and we had Instagram, but it wasn't working properly. It was like giving us issues. So I'm like, nope, get rid of it. So it's literally just Twitter. And so many days I'm just like, I'm not going on. Like 3 days go by and I'm like, oh, I haven't been on Twitter. Oh, whoops.
I only go on now and I just look at
Yeah.
Murph stuff. I'll look at Rambo stuff, Human Vibration
Yeah.
stuff.
Like, I just want to
There's
see what
just a
you guys
couple
are putting out.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
just and that's it. I try to stay off
But
of it.
kudos to like you three for
Yeah.
always being so active and responding to people and
Yeah.
their comments.
Yeah, I in the beginning when I was kind of first getting into the whole idea of that some of these people didn't exist, and before I was really sold on it, I would follow certain people, and I even got like join someone's like Patreon thing, but they never replied to any of my questions.
Mhm.
And I got really pissed off because I'm like, here I am, I some Twitter person, and I joined the Patreon. They came and answered a stupid question, and I even wrote like bro, I'm not here to like get a long answer, just yes or no, and I still can get a reply. And I called the guy out about it actually a few months afterwards, and I think now I have more followers than him. Fuck him.
I love it. That's one thing. It's not like we have like a ton of people following us, but anytime somebody comments or like on our YouTube, if they comment about something, I get so excited because I just look at it like no matter like even if they're saying we suck, they're reaching out, they're taking time to put something out there. So I'm going to respond. I mean, uh, just like some of the stories that people open up and share, it's so incredible. And it's so nice to just have conversations with people and read other people's perspectives and what they've been through and where they're coming from. It's so lovely. And when I see people like you and Rambo and Human Vibration taking the time to comment to people, even if they just don't get something, and it's hard because when you're typing there's no tone and sometimes it feels kind of aggressive, and you guys all just like you explain away and you're also very open, and it's not like, oh, what I say is that's it. You're just, again, you're so open and you're like, okay, let's think about this. And I love that. So kudos to you three for doing all that you're doing just in the name of trying to learn and figure stuff out. It's awesome.
Well, it's almost like a huge house party, and you don't know how many people are inside the house or how big the house is until you actually start walking through the different rooms.
Mm.
And it's cool because if I can't sleep sometimes, and it's been happening lately where I wake up like butt early in the morning and like I can't go back to sleep, and I'll log on and people are still going at it. I mean, it's 24 hours a day. So it's kind of cool where, it's like anything. It's like a constant house party going on that most people don't realize. That it's like people are driving down the street and like saying, "Oh, there's nothing going on in this fucking boring town." They don't realize that there's like a house like right to their left, and it's full of all of these people. And it's like I have people that I'm corresponding with. They're in Saudi Arabia, they're in China, they're in, they're they're in Europe, which is weird. Also, you have totally different accounts where, but some of the accounts that I don't necessarily interact with, but there's a certain accounts where I was wondering. There's like fear porn accounts. They're emanating out of Europe, and they had a large following of Americans, and I started paying attention to the account and started paying attention to the times that they would tweet, and I would figure out that if this person was really in Europe, that would mean that they're waking up at like 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning to do the tweets or whatever, and it made no sense because it's like, you know, if I'm German, I'm going to be on German Twitter. Not that this person was German,
Mhm.
but like, for example, we're American. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that we're like being, have prejudice and, being around mostly Americans. We're looking for the American experience of
Mhm.
how other Americans is trying to figure out what's going on in America
Right.
and in the world. We're not going to log on to a German Twitter and hang out with a bunch of Germans.
Mhm.
So like I started questioning like all like Twitter, like what was coming in front of me? Where is this information coming from? Why is somebody in a European country hanging out with a bunch of Americans? Like, why are there no Europeans following him or he's following Europeans? What's going on here? The whole thing is so wacky.
You're questioning it. You're
So
saying, hey, what's up with this? And you're looking into it and you're trying to figure it out. And that's so many steps further than so many people want to do. They don't even think about that and they don't want to do the work. I mean, we'll try to put information out for friends and family and say, hey, go figure it out for yourself. Here's the links. Here's what we found. And it's just too much for them. So the fact that there are people who do question things and they do try to figure it out and they want to understand it, I think is just fabulous because that's what we need.
yeah, no, I think a lot of it is that you know I don't know. You know what I like? I love it. Well, my favorite part of all these threads and everything is when someone like posts a song that's somehow relevant to the subject. So I like to think of myself as a DJ. I'm serious. Like, you put the subject out of like, because a lot of people, like, in the beginning, I even thought, okay, this is kind of crazy. Like, am I embarrassing like my colleagues per se that I'm saying that I really believe that Michael Jackson's alive? So, and after enough information, I was like, fuck it, I'm confident with this. I'm going with it. But I think a lot of people have the same kind of thing where they doubt themselves, so they're not really being their authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the aid of an avatar, they still can't really be themselves. So a DJ will throw on the tunes and get people dancing. So I think that's what I like to think of myself as, DJ Murph. So, but the interesting thing also is that if you are that vocal, people start accusing you of being an agent, which is starting to happen more and more recently, which is interesting because I view it as a compliment. When somebody would actually pay me to talk like this, fuck that. I'm a compliment. I'll take it.
Well, yeah,
There you
I
go.
mean,
Yeah.
we've brought it up as you always have to question, are these people real? Are they a psyop? Is it, like what is real? Because it's just like this thread you keep pulling and you keep getting more questions. And then the more questions you ask, it just becomes natural. Like, okay, are these people real? And I think it's just natural to question it.
Oh yeah, no, I don't blame people at all for thinking about it. I probably think the same thing. And I mean, even like a year ago, the things that I was interested in a year ago, the things that I believed a year ago, if I would have encountered somebody saying the things that I'm saying, I would have thought the guy's completely off his rocker. If I hadn't, if I had never found human vibration, I probably wouldn't. With that piece of the puzzle of people not being real per se, I wouldn't have the general way I look at things probably at all. That was crucial. And I remember being, I think I was a freshman in high school when the John Bonet stuff happened. And it's almost like, like Columbine and even the Sandy Hook thing, which I wasn't paying attention to at that point. But, there was a period there where we just thought, like, white people were psychopathic killers, right? I mean,
Yep.
it was kind of weird, It's like only white people would do this weird, crazy shit, and like shoot up a school and kill people. I mean, we couldn't really understand, because the people we went to high school with, there was weird people, but the trench coat mafia was like, maybe some goth kids who were a little bit depressed, but
Yeah.
they weren't killers, right?
Right. Right.
And then that stuff happened, and it was like the whole thing. I think even with the Sarah Everhard story, it's like men have been castrated so badly,
Yes.
and in that vacuum, women become maybe a little bit more managed per se, but everyone's so fucking confused, to the point where there's accounts literally that are dedicated to the whole transvestigation stuff, and like I post something about Michael Jackson. There's some people that are so soulless that their only reply is, "That was really a woman." Everyone's the opposite sex. It's all some tranny stuff. Everything's
Yeah.
a tranny, and it's such a weird kind of dark, dark,
Yeah.
dark world
Yeah.
that some of these people inhabit, and it became normal, and it's kind of gross, and a lot of people accuse me of being naive, and I guess that's where the agent thing comes in. Like here's this person telling people that not everyone's a tranny and the vaccine isn't going to kill everybody, and Michael Jackson's still alive, and this guy's just so high on things that he just thinks all these things everything's good. It's not necessarily the things are good, but I just don't think that we should be bogged down by things that aren't real.
It's not as horrible as the world is making it out to be.
Not at all. But it's not to say we don't have tragedy in our personal lives. We do. I mean, people's children get sick. You can't explain these kinds of things. We have enough negative stuff in our own lives that we don't need any fake stories. At least I don't know. I don't think I do. But people seem to like it. They kind of like the I say in the absence of genuine emotion, people will go to the fake thing. I mean, I likened it to it's like masturbation if you don't have a partner. At least you're feeling something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's true. That's true.
Yeah. Wow.
I You mentioned those accounts that talk about just everybody being trans. I came across some of that, and I'm like, okay, I try to keep an open mind about everything, but some of this stuff, I'm just like, okay, come on, it's a little crazy. Like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson is a woman. Like,
Pregnant, I
no.
think too. Was he pregnant? Oh, that was Vin Diesel was the pregnant one or
Oh,
something.
jeez, I didn't see that. The one that got me was the Rock, and I went, okay, no, I'm done. I'm not even. I'm done. Like
And
I've
and,
I've been in the
and,
locker room with the Rock. He's not a woman.
and
Okay.
and the way those accounts deal with people is that they'll present this worldview, and if people say no, that's not going on, then all these different, it's like a gang stalkers, I think is the
Yeah.
word, come on, like, oh, this guy doesn't know reality, this guy hasn't done his research. And I
Sure.
got that. I got early on in the whole conspiracy theory kind of stuff, even when I was beginning into the Tartaria stuff, with specific accounts, that I no longer, have any kind of interaction with anymore. I had to block them actually, just because I just didn't. Ooh, I don't want to think about it anymore. But what I got is that if I didn't believe in something, I always got the thing that I didn't do my research. You know,
What's really interesting with that is, oh, well, you didn't do your research. Usually said by the person who didn't do any research. Because, I mean, for us, when we're talking about a topic, I try to research it as much as I can, but I always put out there, I could have missed something. I could have misinterpreted something. So if you find something different, let me know, because I just want to know. And if I'm wrong, okay, but just let me know. Don't just say, oh, you're wrong, you didn't do your research. It's like, well, how did you get your information? How did you do your research? What did you find? Where did you find it?
The thing with the research too is everything now is online. That's all stuff can just, I mean, so much false information can be put out there and presented as real. So even saying do your research,
True,
oh,
true.
okay, great, I will. What website did you go to? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean that what you saw is true or
Yeah,
accurate.
but if somebody can say, actually, that's a fake website. Oh, okay, awesome. Like, I want to know.
Yeah.
well, a lot of it was you have people who didn't believe in the Q stuff, but believed in a lot of the subjects that the Q stuff was pushing, right? And the whole thing with the Q story was that digital warriors are doing this research, but all of the research that they were doing was pre-planned for them. So it wasn't organic research, like you're going in. It was a predetermined conclusion that you would find, which is
Right.
not research. That's regurgitation, and they made it all. It's really an alternate reality game
Yeah.
where the breadcrumbs and, oh, go to this drop and that would make you this drop and that drop, but the conclusion would be the same for any person playing the game. The Clintons killing everybody, and Epstein with the pizza business, Pizzagate stuff, and DEWs. I mean, I had somebody, argument about DEWs and everything, and I said, it's not real, man. It's fake. It's like science fiction stuff. And the person was like, no, it's real. And they replied back to me with a YouTube video. There's a lot of these YouTube videos will tell you this stuff's real, right? And in the and in the description of the video, it said, "This is not real. This is from a video game." I replied back to the guys. I copied and pasted it and said, "You just sent me a video that's what says it's not real." And he still gave the whole, "You're not doing enough research. You're not doing enough research." I was like, you know what? These guys are just stupid.
Yeah.
I can't argue with them, and that's it. And I had to block them, and just that's it. And a lot of them, that's why I think a lot of these accounts weren't even real to begin with. It was like, you have 10 people in a room, right? And it's like a confidence trick. You walk into, say one person has questions. They go to a place like, oh, where do people go who have questions? Oh, we go to Truth or Twitter. So you walk into the room and there's all these people having a conversation, and like 7 out of the 10 people are not organic. They're there to push a narrative. And the other 3 people are the unassuming people who are actually looking for the truth and are genuine people. And the person walks into the room and they see a conversation and they're assuming it's organic, and really it's all contrived. And I think that was happening early on in the beginning, until I found, my crew, for lack of a better word.
And it's a great crew.
It is a great crew.
It is.
Very entertaining. I
Yeah.
mean, I think one thing that the truth community would ever lack is any sense of humor, any self-awareness, right? I mean, taking themselves so seriously with all this crazy stuff. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a little more fun now. But I don't consider myself a truther, though. I don't like that phrase, that label.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know what
It sounds so pompous.
You're right. Yeah, it does.
Well,
it does have a pompous sound to it when you say that.
I
I'm
feel
a
like,
truther.
well, so Human Vibration, when she was on our show, we were talking, she's like, I was curious. I've always been a really curious person. And we were just talking about curiosity. And I feel like it's more curiosity, just wanting to find things out. It's not trying to prove something. It's just trying to figure it out and trying to find out. So I don't know. I need a thesaurus. I don't know a good word, but it's not like a truther. I don't know. It's like a questioner.
Like
I feel like there's a better word.
I think we're all a bunch of detectives,
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure out what the hell's going on, and we got to bounce things off of each other. And I mean, I don't really like post about Michael Jackson, for any other reason that it feels so good to, like, I call it like our secret handshake. Like, so few people in the world, think this or would know about these things, that it's a cool thing that we have with ourselves, that people, who cares if other people think we're crazy,
Yeah, you can bounce ideas off. Like, earlier I had a thought about something. And so I brought it up. Like, I mentioned it to Alex. And then he's like, huh, interesting. And then I brought it up to Human Vibration and Rambo. And it was just cool because it's like, oh, hey, I had this crazy thought and I'm just going to throw it out at you and see what you think about it. And if I were to do that in my normal life, I think it would be so far over people's heads, they wouldn't even know how to react. They'd just be looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
But at least, regardless of what they think, if they agree with me or they think it's, wow, that's good, or no, that sucks, I can say it. I can throw it out there and just like get it out and get these thoughts out without, worry of, people just, they're not going to get it. It's nice.
It's a great thing. I mean, if you don't have that outlet and all of these thoughts are just in your head, I mean, it can cause sickness, I think. And I don't think it's like necessarily sickness. It's thing of all this energy that has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And it could turn on itself, and become like an isolating kind of thing, where you feel like, no one understands me, or I'm so brilliant and everyone else is so stupid, kind of thing.
Or am I crazy?
When it's really not the case. It's really, I mean, I think what a lot of this Corona stuff and the craziness that we're experiencing really comes down to is that, like, people operate on different frequencies. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that one person is more intelligent than the other person or more educated or whatever. Because, I mean, I even did a post today, like, one of these days I'm going to find out that, like, my most favorite mutuals people are like really teenagers.
Yeah.
and they're like faking that they're like 35-year-old people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm totally actually 16.
No, I'm serious, because you know what? The older people get, the more entrenched they get in the mentality.
That's true. Yeah.
So I find that the most refreshing accounts are these, like, young people who, I have the young guys who, like, DM me all the time, like bouncing ideas off and and like, strutting their stuff, for lack of a better kind of thing, and view me as like an older, like uncle type figure or whatever, you know? And and these guys are really smart, and they have like all the spirit and gumption about them that you like, when people get older, they lose a little bit of that. I mean, whatever. So it keeps me young, and I mean, younger people, I think the less years and years of this emotional trauma, so they can more easily be like, yep, 9/11, planes weren't real. When like an older guy is going to be, he has 20 years of baggage there.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's like, what was it, Mark Twain that said, it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they've been fooled.
Yeah, and the older you get, I
Yeah.
mean, if you talk to somebody who's 60 years old, 70 years old, are they going to want to re-examine their entire life? No,
Right.
I wouldn't. I
Yeah.
mean, if a few more years of me, and I'd be like, no way, I'm not going to go back with that, trying to like, figure that out. I mean, I had to like reprocess Michael Jackson, reprocess Kurt Cobain, reprocess 9/11, reprocess, all these weird things. I'm happy I found it when I did. And the Corona thing, I mean, I think it's shown us that, you know, that we're not alone. It's just that we haven't found the right room yet. Like we're all in the house, we're all like trying to find our way. And like maybe we're like there's a room on the 3rd floor where they're talking about really cool stuff, and we just haven't got there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I love that.
You're the man, Murph. Awesome. I love the way you put stuff, man. It's great. It's great.
That's just awesome. I love that. Again, it's all about perspective, and you bring a nice different perspective, and I find it refreshing.
Amen.
Yeah. Human Vibration, Rambo. It's like, I'm very happy. I'm very grateful that we found you guys, and it's just really nice to, I mean, we've done episodes in the past. We talked about, is the moon landing fake? Is the moon even real? And like, we question stuff. And from people we know, sometimes the feedback is like, really? You think the moon is fake, or you think the moon landing didn't happen, and they get offended by it. And it's like, what's wrong with talking about it? Regardless of what I believe, what's wrong with having a conversation? So it's nice when they're finding more and more, and because of you three, finding more people who want to have these conversations. So it's not just you guys. There's so many other people. It's just wonderful.
There's a crazy amount of people out there, and it's 2020 was actually for some people it was a good thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great thing.
Yeah, I thought 2020 was a great year. We had a really, really good year, and I've said it.
Thankfully.
Yeah, I've said in the past, I don't care if that upsets people, because I'm not going to hide my reality. And my reality, it was good for us. We had a good year, and yeah, I'm thankful for that.
I think a lot of problems. I mean, I think I had my more so early on is that I was still trying to convince people. Like, when someone comes across and they're like, there's only like a few issues that I'll really get into the weeds about. Like someone I had an argument like a week ago about someone made some stupid comment. They tagged me in something, and it was all about Hollywood Satanists and that kind of stuff. And whenever someone gets in, like, touches onto like Pizzagate kind of themes, I go fucking nuts. I go fucking crazy, batshit crazy. And the guy was like, Murph, what the fuck is this, man? Lay off me. What are you bugging me about this shit? I was like, bro, you tagged me in this fucking nonsense. So if you would tag me in something, that's it. This is fair game, bro. And I think I spent like 2 hours like nailing them down, being like, what makes you think this shit? Like, have you ever met someone famous? Like, you just like run around saying that everyone's a Satanist? Like, do you even know any Satanists? And that was like the big thing. Like, we all believed in these crazy things without any evidence, like in the beginning with the whole pizza stuff, is like walking down the street thinking, this is the way the world really is. Like, all these people like going home and living normal lives, they're really living these really secret, weird existences.
Mhm.
Like, is that realistic? And I don't know. It's not. It's not.
Oh, what you say makes sense. So, oh my gosh, something makes sense. Wow, that never happens
Fascinating.
nowadays because we're a bizarre world.
Which is
Yeah.
odd though, because if people in my real life don't see me as a paragon of reason by any stretch of the imagination. So it's a weird kind of paradoxical thing going on. Yeah.
Tremendous.
So, Elvis is Donald Trump Jr. Is that the
Oh no!
or is it?
When I re-listened to the podcast, I realized why that may have been confusing. I don't think that I don't think Donald Trump. I think if anything, it would be Elvis didn't die in 1971, and the Elvis basically became this Donald Trump character. There's really little photographic evidence of Donald Trump in, in between when he was at the West Point Military Academy and when he was a teenager, and then from when he popped onto the scene in the mid 1970s, coming into Manhattan. And it's an outsider story. The family was in Queens, and the father was supposedly a very a wealthy developer in Queens or in Brooklyn, but yet not in the Manhattan kind of thing. It's almost like a Jeffrey Epstein character, where the person really came out of nowhere. Epstein more than Trump, I guess, but anyway, there's a few different videos on how Elvis was naturally a blonde, and there's two Elvises actually. Elvis had a twin brother, or either a twin brother or a brother that was just a very small differential in age. And supposedly the brother died when he was very young. And the story is that basically these two brothers lived. And I'm not as convinced with the Elvis stuff as I am with the Jackson stuff. But when I see Donald Trump Jr., I see a young Elvis. I can't get it out of my head for some reason.
Huh.
Whenever I see a story that is just doesn't seem realistic, I can't help but think, like, for example, even though the last name Trump, how many people do we know has the last name Trump? I mean, it sounds it seems too theatrical. His personality, if you look at the photographs of what the apartment in Trump Tower, first of all, his apartment in Trump Tower, 33,000 square feet. Again, the 33
The
number.
33 again, yeah.
Right? A triplex starts on what floor? The 66th floor in the building, right? Does that apartment look like people who really have a lot of money, they don't live like that. They don't live surrounded with gold-plated toilets. They're kind of down to earth people, but yet have a shitload of fucking money. And then they're not looking for publicity. And this guy's looked for publicity his whole life. And everything seemed to have been like a lineup to be the president. I mean, The Apprentice show, everything.
Yeah.
The whole person, the whole. I mean, you have to think like who could pull off these acting roles? Like for even like Biden, there's all over Twitter now is Biden's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Like 2 months ago, Rambo said that, and people are like, "Oh, this Rambo person's crazy." Now everyone and their mother is saying the same shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But no one really goes after Trump, saying this guy might not be real, not in the sense that he's wearing a mask, but in the sense that it's a contrived personality.
Right.
And I think we have a lot of that going on. And the higher up you go, the better actor you're going to get, because the better actor. And I think whoever's playing Joe Biden right now is probably the best comedic actor in the world, because they can act like that and not break character and smile or laugh.
But even if they did, it would come off like he's freaking crazy and has dementia anyway. And that's the brilliant thing about this character.
The whole dementia stuff is a put on. And early on, I was scratching my head like, how are people like, how is this person becoming president? This person really has dementia. And I think what a lot of the clips that we see, like on Truth or Twitter, are like CGI clips that people in mainstream media, they're not going to show those types of things. So regular people don't see this kind of stuff.
Right.
Like the footage of him, sniffing all the girls, the young girls, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like when I kind of, before I got out of the whole Democrat Republican thing, and I was explaining to a friend that the Biden character was a pedophile, and this footage of him with the girls and everything, and the person thought I was completely off crazy, for saying these things. And looking back on it, I can see why maybe, but um, everything just seems so contrived that's in front of us, that I think people are dying for something that's real, you know. And oddly enough, it's like the thing that people are most afraid of is the thing that's probably the best thing that people could do,
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. I get, the whole Murph character. The Murph character, I think maybe it's a character too. I joke around, it's like an Irish preacher, you know? I don't know. I mean, whatever. I don't know.
You be you and keep spouting out what comes through your head. It's like, that's how great thoughts, great ideas, because again, you keep it all inside, just put it out there. Who cares what other people think? If that's what you're thinking, if that's what you're feeling, go for it.
I've lost a few friends since kind of speaking my mind about a lot of things. Some people think I'm completely fucking crazy. But I gained thousands of people.
It's the vibe tribe, human vibration. Your vibe attracts your tribe. And we've said it before, growing up, never felt like we fit in. I never had many friends. And the friends I would have, I felt like I couldn't be me. And I just wasn't happy. And I didn't really always necessarily like the people I was around, but that's the group I was with. And the more I started speaking up about who I am and how I feel and what I think, the more I've felt like I've had real connections with people, and the happier I am. And it's like, I am comfortable now. And it's just like, you got to be yourself. And those friends who, drop away, well, maybe they served their purpose and they were there for a point, and now you're elevating on to the next step, and you're being surrounded by around the people you need to be surrounded by at that point in time.
Yeah. I don't feel any sadness for the people that have gone. They're lost as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
There it is. Yeah.
Yes,
I
exactly.
mean, people really offended about George Floyd, and it's like, it's crazy. I mean, what I'm blown over by is how people who I really thought were really intelligent don't seem to be curious. And that's the main thing that I have. I don't think it's like you just spoke about earlier, is the curiosity thing. People can be super intelligent, but if they're not curious, it's a waste.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed. That Floyd thing, I mentioned it when we were talking, I think with Rambo. I've still never watched it. I just never cared to. Real or fake didn't matter to me. It's like, I don't want to watch somebody supposedly getting killed. Why would I want to watch that?
I'm the fruitcake though, who literally watched that video over and over and over again, because I was trying, before I realized that it was all bullshit, I was trying to rationalize what, like, the emotional response around me, whether or not this act warranted it. And I was actually trying to show that, that what Chauvin had done wouldn't have caused what they had said. I wasn't trying to defend Chauvin, but I was almost like kind of like playing like the devil's advocate of being like the lawyer who decides to defend him.
Yeah.
And it just didn't make any sense. I mean, a guy 6'4", if he's resisting arrest, what do you do? The guy was a huge guy. What do you do? I mean,
You chase him.
Well, no, the whole thing is just, the whole situation was just so asinine.
Yeah.
It made zero sense, and I wasn't aware enough at the time to realize, wait a second, I am basically watching a movie. I'm watching the videos from the supposed onlookers, the innocent onlookers. I'm watching, the cameras that were faced perfectly, to catch this stuff. I didn't realize at the time, but now I do. But it's amazing though how like the general population still looks at all this stuff, and then you think like a white person questioning out George Floyd really was killed is going to cause a racial tension. But I have people that I interact on a daily basis, black people, who even today, some guy tweeted something like, "The guy's got no legs." So it makes me feel a little more comfortable. But I've actually gone into downtown Brooklyn and talked about this, with black guys, and I haven't got punched yet. But most of the people kind of agree that maybe not that the guy wasn't real to begin with. Maybe I don't get that crazy with them, but that the whole situation is a complete a lie.
Yeah.
Not one person has said to me, no, that's real. Shut up, don't talk about George like that. Everyone kind of admits there's something really fishy with all of it. They know it. So
it's not what they're saying it is.
It very rarely is, if ever.
But I think that's the problem. You don't have black people and white people sitting down at a table, like actually talking about it. So both people are uncomfortable around each other. Like black people are uncomfortable acknowledging, hey, wait a second, like we're getting all this attention over something that's not warranted, and it's the wrong form of attention. And white people are too afraid to say what they really think because they think that they're going to be offending the black people.
Yeah.
So it creates the real racial tension over a fake event, which is, I think, the big confusion that we have right now. The truth or community, whatever, of people think everything's fake, and it's like, no, that's not it. The act itself could be fake, but and I think what I was trying to talk about before is the aftermath is completely real.
The response is real.
Sure. Oh yeah.
The reaction.
It's scary real.
Which is the reason why I think we should be focusing on getting people to open their mind to the possibility that what they're seeing is a complete fabrication. Because once that's the case, if everyone would look at this and be like, no, that's bullshit, they couldn't pull off fake riots because there'd be nothing to riot about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. And I think for me, ever since I started looking at everything through that lens of what if it's just made up? What if this is contrived? What if this is all a show, for whatever means that, they're putting it on for? But what if it's not real? It's fake. It's put on, whatever. Everything changed for me. Everything changed.
It's just looking at it in a different perspective.
It's just looking at it from that perspective. And I'm not the one to say that's fake or that's real, but just looking at it through that lens, it just changes everything.
Well, what's interesting too is I like to play devil's advocate. I like to look at things from all sides, and then looking at it like maybe it's not real, maybe it's manipulated, maybe it's manufactured is just a different side to look at. And I feel like the more sides we have to look at something, the better overall view we can get of what it may really be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people also have the problem that if they're so inundated with all these different viewpoints, that they become paralyzed. And one of the things that I run up against a lot is, well, nobody really knows for sure, so let's all just keep an open mind. But the problem also with that is then you become paralyzed with, it's like going into a restaurant and being like, look, I like everything on the menu, so I'm just going to sit here and stare at the menu because I can't really order one specific thing because I don't want to be biased. But the whole point of going to a restaurant is eating something.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like at a certain point you have to I have to come out. I mean, I guess it just and for me personally, that's why I have to say, like, we all have our personal reality.
Yeah.
Like there's no like single reality that like someone can lay claim to. So in my personal reality, all of these things are real to me. I don't know if it's true, but
that's what you feel. That's what inside feels right.
I think instead of searching for what's true, I think we should just be searching for what's real, because what's true can kind of change based upon what we feel.
Yeah.
But like facts and feelings, I mean, they're easily confused. those two things. But a problem is being paralyzed of oh, there's so many options in front of me. I don't want to pick one. But in a way, we have to.
Yeah.
So.
Murph, where can everybody find you on Twitter? What is your Twitter handle?
Oh, what am I trying to? Ninja Sniper. I don't know how this came about. Ninja Sniper Pawn 1.
All right.
Don't ask me.
We'll put it in the show notes so
Absolutely.
everybody can
Are
find
you
you.
Cool.
anywhere else other than Twitter? Do you have Instagram, any other social media, website?
Oh, did we lose you?
I don't know. Murph?
You still there?
Realize Radio.
Oh, there
Yes, Realize Radio.
Yeah. Just did that last night too.
Yes. And we'll put everything in our show notes
Absolutely.
so everyone can find you.
Cool. Yeah, I'm usually hanging I'm like on the street corner, the Twitter street corner or whatever. Everyone wants to like come into my world. I'm there, you know?
Awesome.
Love it. And thank you for, coming into our world today
Yes.
and speaking with us and bringing more information and different perspective. It's so appreciated. We really appreciate you taking the time.
I'm still, I still get excited about an invitation to speak about things. And in my real life, I joke around with my wife and try to tell her like what I'm working on, what I'm talking about, thinking about. She doesn't want to hear any of this.
Well, anytime you want to talk, it doesn't have to even be on the podcast. Just
cool.
Let us know. And you're
Absolutely.
welcome on anytime. I definitely want to work on getting you and Human Vibration and Rambo all together.
Oh, cool.
Just have conversations. So yeah.
Sounds awesome. Well, where are you guys located anyway?
We're in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're East Coast.
East Coast represent.
Yeah.
Nice.
Same time zone. It's great.
There you go.
Awesome.
All right, Murph, it was a pleasure. I'm going to say goodbye.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night, guys.
You too. Thank you.
You too. Thanks a lot, man. Take care.
Yeah, man. Bye.
And we're back. So that was a fun conversation.
That was awesome.
I mean, we could have just kept going. I think, yeah.
I think we could have kept talking for like 4 more hours.
Easily.
Yeah.
What a great perspective that he brings, and just some of the analogies that he used when explaining certain things.
Yes.
Just really, really refreshing, and just just a great conversation. I mean, yeah, really
fun.
Great conversation. A lot of fun.
Yeah, and he brings up things that we might not have thought of, we didn't think of, and some of the stuff we're just sitting here like, oh shit,
what?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to look into that now.
Yeah, just stuff like the stuff with Mercury and things with the fireplaces and the buildings. Yeah, just things
absolutely.
That you never think of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he's right. It's because we're so bogged down by just debating all these other things that are going on. We never stop to think, well, what about this?
Yeah,
what about,
absolutely.
he made a lot of great points. And I was really, really impressed with his story, just the way he kind of came into everything and just how fast he got to this point. Like, it's just really fascinating. I mean, like, for me, I've always kind of been like how I am now, except for like these last 6 months, looking at everything through a completely different lens. But I've always been into like the conspiracy stuff, that as long as you know me.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it in the past. Ever since I was like a teenager, I always was questioning everything. For him to be coming into it just last year and being where he's at, and just it's amazing.
Seeing what he's seeing and feeling what he's feeling and questioning what he's questioning was just so great.
Yeah. I mean, fascinating story. Just fascinating.
Absolutely.
And just a remarkable mind. I'm going to say a remarkable person,
Mm-hmm.
just based on what I know
Mhm.
from our conversation. Great. Just a great conversation. I really hope everybody enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed being
Yes.
a part of it.
Yes. We had fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost feel bad that we had to end it when we did.
Yeah.
It's just getting very late.
Yes, it
where
is.
we are.
It's past my bedtime.
It's way past your bedtime. It's about 4 hours past my bedtime.
And I've been up since 3:30.
Yeah, we're early birds.
Yes.
Is that the right term?
Yes,
Early
birds.
early birds are the ones that
Yes.
go to bed early and wake up early, right?
I think so.
Something like that. Early to bed, early to rise. Is that the
Keeps
yeah,
you
that's
healthy, wealthy,
something
and
like
wise, or
that.
something like
I
that. I don't
forget
know.
how it goes.
I
Anyway,
just wake up early.
yes, same here.
I've
So
always been that way.
great conversation again,
Yes.
and we'll put all of Murph's Twitter stuff. We'll put
Yes.
his handle on the in the show notes and
Yes.
everything.
And check out Realize Radio.
Yes, and we'll put we'll put all their information on in the show notes as well, just to get more eyes and ears on what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because just great people, great conversations, and again, I think as long as you have an open mind,
Mhm.
nobody's asking you to believe anything. We're just asking. I mean, I'm not asking anybody to believe anything. I don't think anybody
be
else
open.
is, but just be open to the
Yeah.
possibility. That's all.
Just
That's
be
it.
open. That's
Just
all.
be open to the possibility. Because I mean, like I said, ever since I started looking at things through that lens,
Mhm.
it's like a whole new, everything is just new now.
Yeah.
And so much better.
Yeah.
So much better. Like all the anger, panic, stress, fear, any of that kind of stuff, it's gone. For me anyway, it's gone.
I wasn't feeling it before like you were, because I was just like, it's because I tell you, I'm like,
you are
yeah.
much more evolved. Is that the right word? I don't
just
know.
go with what I feel.
Yeah, you're yeah. I think I'm coming to that point now more.
Good.
Thankfully. But yeah, just anyway, great conversation with Murph, and we're looking forward to having him back on again sometime soon.
Yes. So if you want to find us,
Yeah, we are on Twitter
at Homewrecker Pod,
Minds,
at Homewrecker Podcast,
and our website,
homewreckerpodcast.com.
There you go.
Mhm.
And as always, if you're listening to this, please hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to your podcast.
5 stars, please.
Yes, 5-star rating if you don't mind. We appreciate it. And also, if you're watching us, yes, like and subscribe on YouTube.
And Brighteon.
And no more BitChute. We gave up on BitChute.
I'm giving up.
Too much.
I don't have time. I don't have time to try to upload a video 30 times for it to never work.
It's been a process and a half. So
yes.
But we're also on Odyssey.
Yes, we're trying that out. That's like a trial period. So we'll see.
Yes.
But definitely Brighteon. If you are looking for a YouTube alternative, definitely check out Brighteon.
For sure.
Yes.
And again, all that information in the show notes. And as far as you go, where can people find you?
Go to my website, tarotbymonique.com, and my Etsy shop, Wonders by Monique. And you can find Organite, tarot, and oracle readings. I use Shungite in all my Organite devices. And I have smudging spray and incense and all kinds of wonderful things. And if you go to my website, you'll also see that I am an ordained minister. So if you need my services, you want to get married, I'm your gal. And how can people find you, Alex?
I'm on Twitter, the Alex Arion, because it's only one that matters anyway.
And he's sitting right next to me.
So you can find me there. I don't really post too much. I like a lot of stuff. I do a lot of retweets. And you can also go to my website, alexarionfitness.com.
And you can find that information on our website as well.
Absolutely. Everything's in the show notes. So until next time, unless there's any parting words you have for the folks listening or watching, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just be true to yourself. Speak what you think. Don't worry about offending people. Not saying you have to be an asshole about it, but just speak your truth. And you'll find happiness.
Well put. Well put. I think that's something that's a big takeaway. I think, especially from the conversations we've had
With Human
with
Vibration,
Human
Rambo, and
Vibration,
Murph.
Rambo,
Yeah.
Murph. Yeah.
Common thread. No pun
Yep.
intended with Twitter threads.
Right on. Yes. So until next time, I am the Golden Greek Alex Arion. And I'm messing up my clothes here.
It's late.
It's yes, and my voice is going, and I wasn't doing a lot of talking, but my voice is starting to go on me. Crazy.
You're Alex Arion.
I'm Alex Arion. Good grief.
You've been joined.
And I've been joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous, amazing trophy wife, the lovely Monique.
And you've been listening to the Homewrecker podcast.